The bells of the San Miguel Church had barely ceased their echo when an unexpected scene disrupted the sacred calm of the Mass. A barefoot boy, his face streaked with tears and his small frame trembling with desperation, burst into the temple. His steps echoed loudly on the stone floor as he made his way toward the statue of the Virgin Mary, collapsing before it in uncontrollable sobs. Why would a boy, barely 10 years old, confront his despair so openly before strangers? Could the faith of a child hold the answer to his seemingly insurmountable pain? The answers became clear as Santiago, the boy, struggled to articulate the sorrow consuming him. Through his choked cries, he revealed that his mother, Beatriz, lay gravely ill at home. If you enjoy content that helps you grow spiritually, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our community for more inspiration. Let's get started. A fever had stolen her strength, leaving her bedridden and unable to care for herself or her son. For weeks, Santiago had been her sole caretaker, clinging to hope and faith as he prayed for a miracle. His small hands, clutching a worn rosary, trembled as he poured his heart out before the statue. Father Don Manuel, the priest leading the service, quickly understood the gravity of the situation. Kneeling beside Santiago, he gently coaxed the boy to share more. The anguish in Santiago's voice was a testament to his weeks of silent struggle. The priest, a figure of wisdom and compassion in the community, realized this was no ordinary plea. Beatriz, a known figure in the town for her resilience, had reached a breaking point that she could no longer hide. As murmurs of concern rippled through the congregation, Father Don Manuel addressed the faithful, emphasizing their collective responsibility. "Santiago and his mother need us now more than ever," he declared. The congregation, moved by the urgency and sincerity of the priest's words, began to rally. Offers of help came swiftly. Medicines from Doña Carmen, food from another parishioner, and promises of support from others. The unity of San Miguel, a small but tightly knit town, began to shine as brightly as the sunlight filtering through the church's stained glass. In that moment, the Virgin Mary, bathed in the golden glow of the altar light, seemed to witness not just a child's plea, but the power of a community coming together to transform despair into hope. As the crowd gathered in Beatriz's modest home, the atmosphere was tense, filled with the quiet determination of those who had come to help. Santiago clung to his mother's hand, his small frame stiff with worry. Beatriz's labored breathing and pallid complexion were a stark reminder of her critical condition. Doña Carmen worked diligently in the small kitchen, blending herbs into a broth she hoped would ease Beatriz's fever, while others whispered plans to bring more supplies. We all face moments when the challenges of life feel insurmountable, and the path forward is shrouded in doubt. In such times, finding guidance and hope can be the beacon we so desperately need. This is exactly what The Secret of Jesus' Apparitions offers, a path to clarity and peace through his revelations. This ebook goes into his prophecies and offers insight into what lies ahead. It's available for free in the pinned comment. Grab it now before the edition's gone. Father Don Manuel, standing by the door, watched the scene unfold. The people of San Miguel had rallied, offering all they could from their meager resources. Yet he knew this was not enough. Medical care was urgently needed. The priest took a deep breath and addressed the group. "We must act quickly. While the medicines may stabilize her temporarily, we cannot delay further. Beatriz needs professional treatment." The urgency of his tone silenced the murmurs. Don Antonio, the town's mayor, stepped forward. A man of few words but decisive actions, he glanced at the weary faces around him. "Father, we'll find a way. The community will not abandon her." His words, though simple, carried the weight of a promise. As night fell, a plan began to take shape. A small group, led by Don Manuel and Don Antonio, would make the journey to the nearest town at first light, seeking a doctor willing to travel back with them. Meanwhile, the others would stay behind, caring for Beatriz and supporting Santiago. Despite the grim circumstances, the collective resolve provided a glimmer of hope. The hours crept by, marked by the ticking of a wall clock in the dimly lit house. Santiago refused to leave his mother's side, even as his exhaustion was evident. Don Manuel placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "Your faith brought us here, Santiago. Now it's time for us to take action. Rest while we do everything possible for your mother." The priest's words resonated with the boy, who reluctantly lay down beside the bed, clutching his mother's rosary. Outside, the first light of dawn began to pierce the horizon. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but for Beatriz's sake, the people of San Miguel were prepared to overcome any obstacle. The preparations for Beatriz's transfer had transformed the atmosphere in San Miguel into a hub of action and quiet anticipation. Outside her modest home, neighbors worked together with a sense of purpose. The women made sure that nothing was forgotten on the trip by bringing covers and food. Men reinforced the wheels of an old cart that would serve as transportation to meet the vehicle arriving from the city. Inside the house, Beatriz lay motionless, her breathing shallow but steady. Santiago sat beside her, his small hands never leaving hers. Don Manuel, standing by the doorway, observed the scene with a quiet resolve. He approached Santiago, who had been silent for most of the morning, and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's almost time," he said softly. "The people of this town have shown great faith, and soon your mother will receive the care she needs." Santiago nodded, his eyes reflecting both determination and trepidation. His mother's frail form reminded him of how much hung in the balance. Despite the assurances of Don Manuel and Andres, the stranger whose generosity had made the transfer possible, doubt lingered in his heart. "Do you think she'll be okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. Just as Santiago's faith guided him through challenges, remember that valuable resources can support you in your own way. Don't miss the chance to download this free ebook. Only a few copies remain. The priest knelt beside him, meeting his gaze. "Sometimes faith isn't about certainty," he said gently. "It's about choosing to believe, even when fear tells us otherwise. Your mother is strong, Santiago, and so are you." A commotion outside drew their attention. The transport had arrived, a small van driven by Andres's contact from the city. The man, a quiet figure with kind eyes, began discussing logistics with Don Hector and other neighbors. They carefully lifted Beatriz onto a makeshift stretcher, her frailty evident in the way her body barely moved. Santiago stood close, clutching the rosary he had carried since entering the church days earlier. As Beatriz was placed into the vehicle, Don Manuel offered a prayer, his voice steady despite the emotions visible in his expression. "Guide this journey, Holy Mother," he said, "and watch over Beatriz and her son. Let this effort be met with healing." The van's engine roared to life, and Santiago climbed in, refusing to leave his mother's side. The crowd watched as the vehicle disappeared down the dusty road, carrying with it the collective hope of San Miguel. For the first time in days, silence fell. A silence heavy with anticipation, yet buoyed by a fragile sense of hope. As the days passed, Beatriz's condition stabilized further, but the financial strain grew heavier. Andres, true to his word, continued to assist where he could, but the ongoing treatment exceeded everyone's expectations. The hospital's cold corridors and fluorescent lights became a second home for Santiago, who rarely left his mother's side. Don Manuel remained a steadfast presence, offering quiet reassurances as Santiago wrestled with worry over both his mother's recovery and the burden their situation placed on the town. During one particularly restless evening, a nurse approached Santiago, suggesting he rest in the family quarters nearby. Exhausted but unwilling to leave, he hesitated until Don Manuel gently intervened. "You must regain your strength, Santiago. Your mother needs you at your best. Rest now, and I'll stay with her." Reluctantly, Santiago agreed, curling up in a stiff hospital chair. In the solitude of his temporary refuge, his mind wandered to the conversations he had overheard. Though the priest's words had comforted him, he still felt the weight of guilt and responsibility pressing on his small shoulders. For the first time in weeks, sleep overcame him, and in his dreams, he envisioned his mother standing strong once again, her hand on his shoulder as they walked through the familiar streets of San Miguel. Meanwhile, Don Manuel returned to Beatrice's bedside, watching as the medical team monitored her closely. Though her fever had subsided, complications persisted and her road to recovery seemed increasingly steep. The priest silently prayed, his faith unwavering, for the resilience of both mother and son. It was then that Andres reappeared at the hospital, carrying with him news that would reignite hope. "I've spoken to an organization that specializes in long-term patient care," Andres explained to Don Manuel. "They can provide resources for Beatrice's ongoing recovery at a reduced cost. It will still require funding, but it's a more sustainable option." As Santiago discovered strength he never thought he had, you too can find inspiration to overcome life's challenges. Get your free ebook now. Supplies are running out. Don Manuel nodded, recognizing the significance of this opportunity. However, he also understood that convincing the town to rally once more might be an uphill battle. "Let me speak with the community," he replied. "This could be the answer we've been praying for." The following morning, Don Manuel returned to San Miguel to gather the townspeople once more. Standing at the church pulpit, he shared the details of Andres's plan, emphasizing the long-term benefits for Beatriz and the unity it would bring to their community. As he spoke, Santiago's faith-filled plea lingered in his mind, a reminder of the strength found in collective compassion. As the ambulance made its way through the winding roads leading to the city, Santiago sat quietly, his gaze fixed on the passing landscape. The gentle hum of the vehicle contrasted with the whirl of emotions within him: relief for his mother's improvement, gratitude for the community's support, and uncertainty about the life awaiting them in the unfamiliar city. Beatriz rested on the stretcher, her breathing steady, but her strength still fragile. Santiago clutched the rosary tightly in his hands, his silent prayers continuing uninterrupted. Arriving at the city, the towering buildings and bustling streets were a stark contrast to the serene simplicity of San Miguel. Andres was already waiting at the modest apartment he had offered to the family. The space was small but welcoming, with sunlight streaming through the windows and the scent of fresh flowers placed on the table. For Santiago and Beatriz, it was more than just a shelter. It was a symbol of hope and stability. With the help of Andres and Don Manuel, Beatriz was carefully settled into her new room. The apartment had been equipped with everything she would need for her recovery, including medical supplies and a reclining bed for her comfort. Santiago explored the space hesitantly, touching the few belongings they had brought with them and arranging them with care. He was determined to make the place feel like home for his mother. The days that followed brought new challenges. Beatrice's recovery required frequent visits from nurses, physiotherapists, and doctors. Even though Santiago was young, he always did what he was supposed to do. He made simple meals, helped his mum with her exercises, and kept track of her medicine plan. His strength and resilience amazed those who witnessed his devotion. Andres, who had become a constant presence in their lives, visited regularly to check on the family. On one such visit, he brought a small gift for him, a stack of books filled with stories of heroes and adventures. "You've been a hero for your mother," Andres said with a kind smile. "Now it's time to let your imagination soar." Despite the challenges, the bond between Santiago and Beatriz grew even stronger. Their shared faith and determination became the foundation of their new life in the city. And while Santiago missed the familiar faces and comforting routines of San Miguel, he found solace in knowing that the sacrifices made by so many had brought them to a place where healing was possible. Each day was a step forward, guided by faith, love, and the unyielding support of those who had believed in them. The unity and perseverance of San Miguel highlight the importance of being prepared. Download your free ebook today while copies are still available. In the weeks that followed, Santiago adjusted to life in the city with a quiet resilience that belied his age. He quickly became familiar with the bustling streets and the rhythm of the neighborhood. Each day after school, he would return home to help his mother with her recovery exercises, carefully following the instructions left by the physiotherapists. Beatriz, though still fragile, found joy in small victories, standing for longer periods, taking measured steps to the balcony, and preparing simple meals with Santiago's assistance. Andres remained a consistent figure in their lives, often stopping by to check on their progress and share stories of his own upbringing. One evening, as they sat together in the modest living room, he brought out a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a framed photograph of the Virgen Maria from the church in San Miguel. "I thought this might remind you of where your journey began," Andres said softly, placing it on a shelf where the sunlight illuminated it during the day. Beatrice smiled, her gratitude evident. "Thank you," she whispered. "It will always remind us of how far we've come." Santiago, who had been quietly listening, approached the frame and touched its edge. "It's perfect," he said. "She's been with us all along." On weekends, Santiago would accompany her to the nearby park, where they would sit under the shade of tall trees and watch children play. Occasionally, Beatriz would share stories from her youth, tales Santiago had never heard before. These moments became a source of healing for them both, a chance to reflect on the past without being weighed down by it. One afternoon, while tidying up the apartment, Santiago found an old notebook among the few belongings they had brought from San Miguel. Flipping through its pages, he saw it was filled with Beatrice's handwriting, poems, prayers, and notes she had written during her illness. He brought it to her, curious. "Mom, what's this?" Beatrice hesitated, then smiled faintly. "It's where I kept my thoughts when I couldn't speak them," she explained. "There were days when I felt so afraid, but writing helped me remember the things I believed in." Santiago sat beside her, leafing through the pages. One passage caught his attention. "Faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the choice to keep going, even when fear tries to hold you back." He read the words aloud, feeling their weight. "You never gave up, Mom," he said, his voice steady. "You taught me that." She placed a hand over his, her gaze filled with pride. "And you taught me to believe in miracles, Santiago. Not just the ones that come from above, but the ones we create through love and perseverance." He excelled in school, earning the respect of his teachers and peers for his diligence and kindness. She, though still in recovery, began volunteering at a local community center, helping other families navigate their own challenges. Together, they found ways to give back, inspired by the generosity they had received. If this message makes you think and you feel it connects with you, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Also, if you really want to support our work and help us keep creating valuable content, consider giving us a super thanks. Join this amazing community and don't miss any news. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Santiago stood by the window, watching the lights of the city flicker to life. Beatriz joined him, leaning on his shoulder. "Do you miss San Miguel?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I think San Miguel will always be part of us, and so will everyone who helped us." Beatriz nodded, her smile soft but radiant. "That's the beauty of faith and community, Santiago. They stay with you, no matter where life takes you." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the glow of their new life, they felt the enduring power of the connections they had forged, the ones that had carried them through darkness and into light.